Welcome to Tales of Resilience, a podcast honoring the heart behind animal rescue. I'm your host, Jolene Feeney, a mental health therapist, lifelong animal lover, and founder of Zodipaws and Animal Rescue Hub. This is a space for real conversations with the people who care for animals when no one else can. From shelter teams and wildlife rehabbers to transporters, vet techs, and nonprofit leaders. We talk about the joy, the grief, the burnout, and the moments that remind us why we keep showing up. Whether you've lived this work or just want to understand it more deeply, thank you for listening. Let's get into today's story. This episode may include references of animal suffering and death, as well as themes of mental health, including suicide. Welcome to Tales of Resilience. I'm your host, Jolene, and today I'm honored to welcome Brittany Amarillas, president of Golden Bond Rescue, the largest retriever rescue on the West Coast. Since 1991, this 100% volunteer-run nonprofit has been dedicated to improving the lives of retrievers and retriever mixes, successfully placing over 3,500 dogs into loving homes. Golden Bond Rescue not only provides second chances for dogs in need, whether due to family hardships, behavioral misunderstandings, or medical challenges, but also educates the public to help prevent future homelessness among retrievers. Their work, done domestically and internationally, reminds us there is no such thing as a perfect dog, only dogs deserving of time, patience, and love. I'm excited to dive into Brittany's perspective in rescue, leadership, and what it means to give a retriever a second chance. So, Brittany, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jolene. Thanks for thinking of us and having us on your podcast. We're excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, my pleasure. One of my girlfriends, in fact, was like, you need to reach out to Golden Bond Rescue. So I'm happy to do that. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, excited to have you guys here. So, first, I like to just start with giving the floor to just being able to learn more about Golden Bond Rescue, what you guys are about, what you guys are doing. So I'll just give you the floor to kind of introduce the rescue.
Yeah, thank you. Well, Golden Bond Rescue, it's I've been a part since 2017. I started off fostering dogs and kind of grew from there. And I've had the opportunity to learn so much about the rescue, but also to grow with the rescue because we have changed so dramatically since 2017. I would say really a big change happened, a big shift happened around 2020, just after COVID, where our local influx dramatically changed and has never gone back. And what I mean by that is, prior to 2020, we would get, I don't know, 1 or 2 local dogs a month, maybe. And that's in Oregon, Washington, California, Idaho, 1 or 2 dogs a month max. Now we get anywhere from 20 to 30 calls a month of local families wanting to release dogs to us for one reason or another. I'm sure a lot of our listeners have heard about the struggles that our local shelters are having as well. They're inundated. I know the one by me, they cannot accept releases. They can only accept strays at this time, which is just really puts people in a hard position. And so not only are we taking in more dogs, but we're also working closer with our local shelters to help that impact on them because they're under not only physical constraints with how many dogs they can shelter, but they're also under staffing cuts, budget cuts. They are up against funding walls and what they can really do for dogs. There's an extent to what the shelters can really do. They try their best, but at the end of the day, a lot of times these dogs need just a little bit more than what the shelters can give them in addition. And kind of snowball off. But that's just one of the many ways that we're helping our local community is by taking in the local dogs that we can take in. And then also when we can, helping those shelters. And we do that Southwest Washington, we partner with quite a few of the Vancouver area shelters. Washington County, there's a shelter in the Bend area. There's one in the Springfield area that we work well with. And then Clackamas County here in Oregon, they kind of have us on speed dial, if you will. When they get a retriever or a golden, even a mix in, they'll reach out to us to help. And we definitely help when we can. Another thing that we we've always done, but we seem to be doing a lot more of, is the dogs who they have significant needs. And maybe that's behavioral, maybe that's physical. One example is a puppy that had severe hip dysplasia, so severe her hip had dislocated and she couldn't walk at all. And so those are the types of dogs, liver shunt dogs, things like, these are things that dramatically impact the dog's longevity, that we've really taken a big role in helping these dogs physically, behaviorally, rehabilitate and then find their forever homes. In addition to the international work, which we did a lot prior to 2020. And now we're, since regulations have shifted to where we can start bringing dogs in again from China, we've continued to do a lot of work with South Korea, bringing in those dogs, which is just unbelievably rewarding to see these dogs, the ones from China come from unspeakable conditions, and to see them come over here, it's really something. It really is. These are dogs that are coveted here by us, and then over there, they're not looked upon as gracefully. So that's our big focus right now. We're constantly busy. We're constantly bringing dogs in. Each year, it seems like we hit a record number of dogs that we're bringing in. And yeah, so that's what we're doing. It just never stops. It's always busy, and we're all volunteers. So we don't have one single paid position within our organization. Our board of directors is all volunteers. The people who do our intake, our transportations, we rely heavily on just the amazing community that Golden Bond has. Your friend, who, she knows, she sees the community and the support that we offer, and it's really an amazing community that we built.
Yeah. 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 The amount of dedication that people who contribute their time to rescue organizations like Golden Bond is amazing, because yes, there's no monetary gain for it. It's all, what you get from your heart and soul.
Yeah.
Work. Yeah.
Sanity, heart, soul, sanity. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. That influx that you're talking about, starting in 2020. Now, I know that some rescues that I've talked to in the past have talked about, the post kind of lockdown time and people not having the time anymore to give to a dog. And so they were, handing over their dogs to shelters and rescues. What is your perspective on this influx that you've been experiencing over the last 5 to 6 years?
That's something that we've all talked about a lot. Like, what is it? Something has shifted, and we all thought it was just going to be, the COVID puppy, right? The person that got the puppy and was like, oh, wait, I have to go back to work now. What am I going to do? Or they didn't give the puppy the time that it needed to, train and develop, and, they wanted to get rid of it. And I don't think that's what we're dealing with anymore. I think that our presence has grown and our reputation has grown. And I think that may have spurred that word of mouth and that development with the social media, right? More people following us, more people learning about us during those periods of time. And I think that, and I do also believe that we've developed relationships with other shelters and other rescues. And we all try to help each other out. And so when somebody tries to release a golden retriever to, Clackamas County Shelter and they can't take it, they may say, hey, reach out to Golden Bond Rescue. Some of our partner rescues in the area, they may call us and say, hey, I've got this lab. Can you guys take it? I'm kind of full up, and then we'll go do the dog evaluation instead. So I think a lot of it is just building that community, getting that word of mouth. However much I may not love social media, I think social media really has helped propel Golden Bond Rescue. And so when, you have a coworker that's talking about releasing her dog, you're going to go, wait, that's a retriever? Call Golden Bond, because you now have heard of us as well. And so we're just having more of an impact in the community. We're doing more events. We're getting our name out there more. And I think that's great, because I want people to know that we're here to help.
Absolutely. I know that you shared in our intake documents about like how you got into working with Golden Bond Rescue in particular, but have animals always been a part of your life? And just for the sake of the podcast, would you mind sharing how you kind of got involved?
Yeah. So, I've just always been that person that's had a different viewpoint, I think, on animals and animal welfare than some of society. And so I've always had that instinct to help any animal in need. Going down how I got specifically into Golden Bond Rescue was my he was my boyfriend at the time, but my husband got us a puppy in 2010, and that was my first dog. And it changed my life. It completely changed my life. Having the bond that you have with a dog, golden retriever or retriever in general. Um, Fast forward a couple years, we got another puppy from a breeder, and we were very, very young. We were in our early 20s. We didn't know anything about breeding or any of that stuff. And she was very poorly bred, and she unfortunately passed away just a few years after we got her. And that was my first loss ever, dealing with a loss like that. I was just devastated. And I learned a lot, though, working with my vet, who is still my vet. She kind of explained to me what causes this to happen, because she rescued golden retrievers as well.
Hmm.
And so it took a while, but I finally Googled, golden retriever rescues, and Golden Bond popped up. And it took me about 6 months to finally get through the application, because there's one spot of the application where you have to list out your dogs. And I didn't want to say
Hmm.
Emma had passed away. Just putting it on paper for me was too real. So it took me a long time. But once I did it, I became a foster. And that was amazing. My first foster dog was a foster from China. And her name was Muffin. She was 2. Oh, I just lost her 6 months ago. But I kept her, and she was amazing. And having her, and then seeing the other dogs in China that needed help, I reached out to our medical director at the time, and I said, how can I help more? How can I be more involved? And so I became a medical intake manager at the time, and I started helping locally bring in dogs from Clackamas County, from China. And you just see the impact that you have on these dogs, and you want to keep going. You want to keep going and helping. And yeah, that's how it started.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm sure other listeners can really resonate with the feelings that are coming up when, we talk about those really special animals that touch us. And, obviously also the loss is so recent. So thank you for sharing that. And like you said, you're touching a lot of lives, changing a lot of lives, but they're also touching and changing our lives too.
They do. They really do. They're what keeps you going, however much it hurts, that you got to keep going, because
Yeah,
there's more dogs that need help, and there's more things that need to be done.
absolutely. Yeah. Now, the dogs that come from China. Now, I've heard from other rescues who rely on transporting internationally that there had been some laws and regulations that kind of restricted um, even size of what kind of dogs would be accepted in. Can you speak a little bit more about what that takes to bring a dog over to the United States?
Korea is so there's different countries that are labeled high risk, and I guess there's different categories, but China is a high risk country specifically for the rabies. And there were some rescues who potentially were bringing in dogs, and they weren't following the rules. And so there was a pause there for a while on bringing in dogs from those high risk countries, China being one of them. They changed a lot of the rules and regulations around how to bring them in when they opened the door back up. So it is a lot more invasive on being able to bring the dogs over. Primarily, when the dog gets in, there's only certain airports they can fly into. So for us right now, we can only use LA. There's LA
Mm.
Kennel Club will accept these international dogs, because they have to be inspected by is it a USDA vet, has to come in, inspect the dog, revax, or CDC. It's a CDC dog. I don't handle the permits
Yeah,
aspect of it.
I think it is a CDC. I think maybe is what I
CDC.
heard.
qualified vet. So it's a vet that has a special designation. They
Mm-hmm.
come in and do the inspection. So we have no contact with the dog whatsoever until it comes in. They do the inspection. They perform a rabies vaccination, regardless if the dog was vaccinated in China or not. They provide additional rabies vaccination to certify the dog's been vaccinated. They give the dog the official certificate, and then they will release the dog to Golden Bond. And then we're either there on site in LA to get custody of the dogs, or we fly the dogs up to the Portland area and then we obtain custody at that point. There's a ton that goes in between, having the dog, presented to us from the rescue that has it in China to getting the dog here. But that was the biggest change. We can't just fly a dog to any airport. We can't just fly a dog to any particular kennel. It has to be a specifically designated facility that accepts these dogs when they come in. And it's pretty intense. I mean, if the dog comes in and they have skin conditions or they've got, issues with their teeth, they could be declined. And so we really have to partner strategically with these rescuers in China that have the dogs to ensure they're in good health. And if they're not, help to get them to that point to where they can travel. We've got 3 girls right now in China that I believe they were born in like a slaughterhouse type situation. They'd never been exposed to human contact. What human contact they had was very negative, and so they're still there, but we're paying for a trainer to work with them because the problem is they weren't. You couldn't handle them. You couldn't put a leash on them. You couldn't, your typical golden retriever, but they were just terrified of humans, and they're getting to the point now where we can put a leash on them. They'll eat out of your hand, and so because we know if the dog comes in and we can't vaccinate or we can't put a leash on them, they're not going to be accepted. And so that's just an example of kind of how we have to handle these China rescues that come in. Korea is a lot easier. We fly dogs in from Korea a few times a month usually.
Okay.
But China is the big hurdle.
Wow. It's a lot of logistics, it sounds like, to make that all possible. So
it is, but we have a pretty amazing international team that is 4 people now that focus specifically on all the different aspects of the international rescue, and they're fabulous. They do a pretty amazing job.
Wow, that's awesome. So I know that you're a busy person. What does a day look like for you if you could quantify an average day? What's an average day for you? What does that look like?
It's hard to say. I just recently started a business with my partner, and so that's as a business owner, who knows what the day is going to throw at you. Today, I'm dealing with an electrician, and I'm on a podcast. So, but and it also depends on the time of the year. So we're getting ready for our annual fundraiser that we do each year, and prior to having this role at Golden Bond, I did fundraising for them, and so I'm still wearing that hat. And we're getting ready to prepare for the fundraiser, and we're also getting ready to change our website, redesign our website. And so I'm dealing with the website designers and the team on the website, dealing with the fundraising team on the annual dinner, and then dealing with my job, which is wealth management. And then I've got my 2 dogs at home, taking care of them and my family. So yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, you got a full plate.
Yeah.
Yeah. What would you say are some common misconceptions that people have about maybe about retrievers in particular?
Honestly, I feel like there's the biggest thing that I'm noticing, and we Golden Bond Rescue would really like to erase the stigma of these golden retrievers and Labradors that have behavioral issues. There's a lot to it, as we all know. If you don't, somebody who does struggle with some kind of mental disorder, or it doesn't have to be a disorder, but maybe there's just something going on with them emotionally. Is it past trauma? Is it childhood? Is it situational? Is it how they were raised? These dogs deal with that too. And it doesn't make them imperfect. And just because they're on an anxiety medicine, or maybe they can't go on walks because it's too much for them, it's too many feelings for them, you can help them work through it. Or maybe that's just not a dog that that wants to be walked every day. Maybe he's happy sniffing in the backyard or going to a sniff spot. There's just so much misconception around, and we deal with it as humans. Dogs deal with it too, and I want to erase that stigma.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems like, and maybe this is not accurate, but that for retrievers in particular, whether it's labs or Goldens, that there's an expectation I think people put on them to be a certain type of way. And so if they're not meeting those expectations, that can be very frustrating for
Yeah.
people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I speak more to just the dogs that are in foster care that are looking for their forever home,
Yeah.
because to me it's almost like a disservice when the dog comes in and it's so unbelievably cute. And everybody looks right past what we verbally tell them because they see is this cute dog, and there's a stereotype around it going, well, that's a cute golden retriever. It's fine. I can handle it. And then, you get a phone call a week later. It's like, oh my God, this dog, it's like, well, but this is not
Mhm.
your typical golden retriever. He needs some additional help. And this is how, so sometimes it's just getting past that,
Mhm.
because there is a certain, stereotype around golden retrievers are jovial and they're playful and they love all dogs. And, same thing with labs. And depending on their background, that may not
Yeah.
be the case.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely. What's that like when those occurrences happen when, a dog is um, finding a home and then they get in this home and then people feel like confused or frustrated by what's happening. What's that like on the rescue side?
we, we're always in it for what's best for the dog, period. At the end of the day, that's our number one priority. People may not always like that, because it's always dog first for
Mhm.
us. Um, so we'll always work with the adopter if they want. We've got a really good training network in the Portland, Oregon area. Specifically, we work with a couple really good trainers and behavioralists because sometimes it goes hand in hand. You don't just need a trainer, you need somebody like a behavioral vet that can go in as well and help. And we always offer to support them in that way if they're willing to work with the dog. Unfortunately, they're not always willing to work with a dog because they really do want like what's called like that plug and play dog, the dog that
Sure.
they can just take home, which I totally understand. Not everybody has the time and the patience and the ability to
Mhm.
do that. And so then we always offer, we'll be happy to take the dog back in. We'll place the dog in foster care. And then at that point, we typically pause anybody looking to adopt that dog until we feel like the dog is in a much better place.
Mhm.
And then we match it more appropriately. It really doesn't happen very often, because we try to be very diligent and deliberate about dogs that we know that have behavioral issues, getting it all sorted out first, and then finding a good match.
Yeah.
Um, that's very, very important. And we typically, when we match a dog that has some sort of behavioral thing that it comes with, we will work with, we've got a couple really great, I guess you call them trainers that are within GBR
Mm.
that will work with the foster and the applicants to really make sure, okay, is this going to be a good fit, for everybody?
Yeah. Trying to ensure that lifetime placement.
Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. So a big theme of the podcast is resilience and what it takes to continue to show up in this work, especially as a purely volunteer run organization. First, how would you, if you could define resilience, how would you define it?
It's the ability to keep moving forward regardless of what is thrown into your path. And sometimes what is thrown into your path brings you to a complete standstill. But if you're resilient enough, you can pull whatever it is out of the path, look for an alternative path, and you keep moving forward because you've got your target in front of you, right? You don't really have a choice. But I think resilience and grit go hand in hand. I think I get my resilience from the dogs that I see, to see where they come from, and where they are by the time they get adopted is just incredible. And grit is that thing that's in your soul that you just power through when you don't want to, when you're tired. um you do it anyway because you've got the grit and you know it needs to be done. And there's so many people in our organization that have that truly
Mhm.
inspire me, that have been doing this on the board for way longer than I have. And they are the definition of resilience
Mm,
because the things that they have to muddle through every day is it's truly incredible.
yeah. Yeah. So not only having a really meaningful mission and drive to do important work, but also having the inspiration from the dogs themselves and the people around who are demonstrating that same sort of resilience and grit kind of keeps
Right.
that in you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, have there been times when you've kind of questioned, can I keep doing this? Or have you always felt like really persistent in what you're doing?
No, oh yeah, there's definitely times. There's always times. And I think that's where the grit comes into play is
Yeah.
because there's going to be moments that are painful. But having the ability to sort through those emotions and realize that on the other side of those emotions is other dogs that need help. Um, yeah, I mean, losing, we've had loss. I've specifically had loss within the rescue of dogs that we couldn't save. And that's hard. And that always makes you question, but it doesn't take long before your email goes off and there's another dog that needs help. And that's where you just keep pushing.
Yeah. How do I guess you personally cope and obviously share just whatever you feel comfortable sharing, but how do you personally cope with that grief or loss or those hard, really those challenging times?
I mean, being with my dogs, I'm one of those people that just wants to get outside and breathe sunshine, fresh air. And so sometimes you just gotta put your phone away, turn it all off, and then just go hang out with your dogs,
Yeah.
be outside. It's very therapeutic.
Yeah, absolutely. As a team, is that something that you guys talk about as far as like compassion fatigue or burnout? Is that something that you guys are kind of actively exploring, or how does that usually get managed?
That's a really, really good question. I don't think anybody on our in the well, anybody on our board really probably manages their what did you call emotional fatigue
Yeah.
because every single one of them is just so passionate and so driven. And sometimes it's like, gosh, you guys are taking on a lot, just don't take on so much. And that's
Mhm.
always something that I think we could be more cognizant of is how much is everybody taking on? And is that too much for that individual to take on?
Mhm.
Because everybody wants to save all of the dogs. Everybody wants to make Golden Bond as good as it can be. But as a volunteer, that can be a lot on somebody's shoulders. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I think that that's a common mentality for anyone who gets into this work is
Yeah.
just, yeah, a lot of
A lot
a
of
lot of
passion.
grinding, a lot of pushing,
Yeah.
trying to find the right boundaries for yourself.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you find that you struggle with your own boundaries with the work, or have you found good boundaries?
I
Mhm.
have struggled with that, but since opening our office last September, I've really had to kind of look at ways to prioritize things.
Mhm.
So it just takes a little bit of work. You really have to think time blocking, right? Time blocking is everything. And I think that there's some people on the board too that will say, hey, you know what, I need a week to do what it's like, yes, do that,
Mhm.
absolutely. And just making sure that we continue to support people when they take time off and away. And hopefully they can unplug their phones too and just
Yeah.
take a little bit of time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've talked to different rescues where, individually it's kind of their practice after fostering a dog for however long, they end up taking like a week or two off just so that they can kind of
Oh yeah,
refocus on themselves and then hop back into it when they can.
definitely. Yeah, fostering dogs. I haven't been able to foster for the last 2 years just because of my own dog situation, but it is the one of the most rewarding things you can do, but let me tell you, it will challenge you. It's, you always look back on it fondly, but there are times where you're just like, what did I get myself into again? But it's always really great.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, fostering is such a huge responsibility, right?
Yeah.
Because you're learning that dog and trying to help kind of shift some behaviors or shape them, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's a big duty to take
Well,
on.
and that is the backbone of Golden Bond Rescue. I mean,
Yeah,
truly, it is our fosters.
yeah,
And it's just such a, I mean, I don't want to say thankless because we really do try to thank all of our fosters.
hmm,
But I mean, at the end of the day, you've got to be in it because you want to help change that dog's life. And it's
hmm,
it's really just about your heart and your commitment to them. And we have such a large foster network and we have some of the most incredible fosters. And I'm in awe almost daily by some of the levels of commitment we see from these different fosters.
yeah,
So it's truly an amazing job that they do. And if it wasn't for the fosters, because we don't have a facility,
right.
so we are 100% reliant on fosters.
Hmm.
We support them every single way we possibly can. We want to support them, but at the end of the day, they're the ones that are, working with the dog day in and day out.
Yeah,
So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, thank you to them for all the work
yeah,
that they're
thank
doing.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there an animal in particular that really stands out for you that is really one that demonstrates resilience or um, any particular story that you can think of?
There's a handful of stories for me. Yeah, there was one dog that came over from China, and it was so we used to do these trips where when the dogs would come in from China, they'd come into SeaTac, and we
Hmm.
would just drive up there in the Golden Bond van and get them. Can't do that anymore because SeaTac isn't an international base where dogs can come in at this time. But it was right before COVID hit, actually. And this one dog, I can't think of her name. I know her adopted name, but she couldn't hardly walk. She couldn't walk. And we brought her in to the house where we were staying after we got her from the airport, and she just laid down. Like she could hardly get up to go to the bathroom. And um I was able to pick her up and carry her wherever she needed to go. And I just thought to myself, like, is this are we is she in more pain than we want her to be in?
Hmm.
Um, are we doing her a disservice by doing this? And Golden Bond, the president at the time, said, "Nope, we're gonna get her the help that she needs." And they got her into a specialist. They got her a new set of hips.
Hmm.
And a year later, I get a picture of her running through a daffodil field or a tulip field of some kind. And it was just like, oh my God. Because you have to question those things.
Yeah,
But that's what the professionals are for, and then we took her in, and that's the coolest thing about Golden Bond. And what I'm always so proud to say is that we do anything we can for these dogs medically. Yeah, that was something. So,
yeah, that's probably an unspeakable transformation to actually look at, it's
oh God,
just
yeah. I just remember like just feeling so heavy,
hmm,
and yeah, to see that. And that again, it just speaks to our volunteers and just how
yeah,
passionate they are, and the foster that took her through the surgery, and all everything all combined made that moment possible for that dog.
yeah, absolutely. Now, vet care has become increasingly expensive, as I'm understanding. Um, how are you guys navigating those costs?
We ask for donations. No,
Yeah.
lots of donations. It is crazy to look at the year over year increase because not
Mhm.
only is vet care getting increasingly expensive, we have more dogs. And then with more dogs comes more medical needs.
Yeah.
And every year we've had at least a handful of dogs that have had some pretty significant medical issues. Liver shunts are, $18,000 to $20,000.
Mm.
Hips are about $10,000 a piece. If the dog needs both hips, you're looking at 20,000 plus the physical therapy costs.
Wow.
We have a few dogs that did and have seizures, so epilepsy, pretty
Hmm.
significant epilepsy. And then you've got the training, again, is that behavioral aspect of a lot of these dogs need some one-on-one time with a trainer that's not just a month long. It's going to be longer than that. So it's ongoing needs in addition to the neuter, spay, vaccinations. And so we really look to our supporters to help. We've had some very generous donations over this last few years. A bequest from an estate has definitely helped with our vet care.
Mm,
We've got some truly incredible donors that are very loyal to Golden Bond. And they're really what makes that difference and allows us to continue to use those funds for these dogs. And we're very proud and happy to do that.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's again kind of going back to cultivating that broader reach and connection with communities and
Yeah, one thing we can definitely get better about, and we're trying to be better about, is sharing all of those stories with people so that
mm-hmm.
they can see the impact of the donations, they can see the impact of their volunteer work.
Yeah.
I really hope that with a new website design and we've got a great social media team that we can continue to share these stories of resilience, right? Um, and just where that dollar is going and being spent.
Absolutely. Yeah. If so you've been part of this organization for a good chunk of time. What would you say for people trying to get into whether it's the rescue work on more of an administrative place, a foster place, maybe even starting something up if they want to, like what would be some advice that you would give or even some words of wisdom about how to kind of sustain yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question because we actually sat around the other day and kind of asked each other on the board, like, how did you get involved? Because
Mm-hmm.
we need more volunteers. And so it's like, well, wait a minute, how are people, do they feel comfortable, reaching out? Do they feel like there's a place for them to,
Mm-hmm.
get in with Golden Bond? And I just say start small if you can. Just get your name out there, send an email, fill out a volunteer request form. We're a very welcoming community. We love to have new volunteers jump in. We'd love to learn more about you and how you could fit in with the rescue and where you might be of help. If there's a special skill that you have, email us, share it, tell us about it. Because we desperately need more volunteers because we are just growing. We have been growing at a very fast pace, and the only way we can continue to keep afloat is getting more people involved.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and speaking of just that support, like how can like if people are just now finding out about Golden Bond Rescue through this podcast in particular, and they felt really compelled to support the work you guys are doing, what would be some avenues that you would want to put out there for them?
Fostering is always a great way to start. And I'd probably say that because that's how I started. But
Mm-hmm.
I do feel like that's the quickest way you're going to get a taste for the rescue. You're going to get hands-on experience with the dogs. There's a volunteer form on our website you can fill out. Or you can just contact us. You can just email us at the info at line, tell us a little bit about what you might be interested in, and we'll reach back out to you and we'll start the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I forgot to ask this question, but I always find it really, I don't know, just a nice kind of reflection. But what do you feel like working with these animals has taught you about yourself?
That I'm resilient.
Yeah.
I'm just giving you a few plugs, right?
Yes, yeah. Resilience, resilience.
Yeah. Um, I think that I have a lot more heart than I realized I
Mm,
did for not just the dogs, but for my community in general. Um, and I just think that when your heart is truly passionate about something, you can accomplish anything. And I think that that's the biggest thing. And you have, and most importantly, you have a team around you.
mhm.
And that's what we have with Golden Bond is we've got a wonderful team that surrounds us, that helps us, that propels us. If I can't do something and I need some help, there's always somebody there that's willing to help. Can you move that dog from point A to point B or whatever the case may be? Having a community is important, but also if it's something that you're truly passionate about, you can find a way to do it, and you will.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Well, Brittany, I know that you do have a tight timeline today, so I want to respect that, and I want to thank you for the passion that you give to Golden Bond Rescue, of course. A greater thank you also to the team that is very dedicated and putting in, sounds like a lot of hours and heart into the mission. So yeah, thank you for being a part of this conversation. I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really a pleasure. Anytime I can talk about dogs and Golden Bond,
Yeah,
I'm always happy to do it.
yeah, it's a good time. Perfect. Well, thank you and
Yes.
take care.
Thank you, Jolene.
Thank you again to Brittany Amarillas of Golden Bond Rescue for sharing her story. If you were moved by this episode, share, like, follow on Instagram at animal.rescuehub and leave a review. And until next time, may we all find our own tale of resilience. Thanks for joining us on Tales of Resilience. If today's story moved you, reminded you of your own path, or gave you something to think about, please consider sharing this episode with someone else who cares. You can follow us on Instagram at zodi.paws and animal.rescuehub to stay connected, or visit zodipaws.com or animalrescuehub.org to learn more about both of these organizations. And you can also email us directly at info@animalrescuehub.org. And if you or someone you know has a story worth sharing, we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, be kind to yourself and never underestimate the power of a tale and a little resilience.